Hello and welcome back to the Jason Sellers Politics Podcast. Let me just make sure the mic's on. Okay, yes, it is. My guest today is Conrad Zbikowski. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. Recently announced candidate for Minneapolis City Council in Ward 3, election 2023. I'm going to let him in a second, but real quick first, I just want to say that I have changed my social media handles. Um, I am now at MPLSJason on Instagram and at Jason Sellers MN on Twitter. You can see it up here. No longer vote sellers. And my website is now jasonsellersmpls.wixsite.com/politics, formerly votesellers.wixsite.com/votesellers, jasonsellersmpls.wixsite.com/politics. Again, I've said it before. I'll shorten it if I need to, if the situations um, calls for it. So I'm about to let Conrad in. Let's welcome in Conrad. Ah.
Hello.
Hey. Um, so we've met, once before in person. But I'll just start with a quick personal introduction and then I'll hand it over to you for the same thing. My name is Jason Sellers. I use he, him pronouns. 19-year-old Minneapolis political science undergrad right now at Minneapolis College. And I'm trying to get to know candidates and maybe help candidates from all around the city. As you know, I currently live in Ward 1, but hopefully we'll be moved out, likely into Ward 3 by November 7th, 2023, which is Election Day, for those who don't know. So what is your back cover of the book summary that I like to call it of yourself that you want people to know about?
Yeah, my name is Conrad Zbikowski. I live in Ward 3. I use he, him pronouns. I've lived in this general area for the last 10 years. Like many people, I came here for college and stayed and love it here and want to make it better.
All right, and then yeah, just once again, how do you pronounce your last name?
So I use different pronunciations depending on people's kind of ease of talking.
Hmm.
Um, the Polish pronunciation had a dot over the Z, and then the W has a VH sound. That's common in Polish. Um, and then when I'm talking to people who find that difficult, it's okay to just say like Zbikowski or something, which adds another syllable for some reason, but it sounds easier. It's easier to say.
Yeah, I think yeah, because I think the first time I met you, I think you said it Zbikowski, so that's how I introduced you before I let you in. But
Yeah, that's
uh,
all right.
so my first question, we got a few here. Should only take, half hour, a little bit less. So what experience you have, like not just political, but life experience? Uh, what can you tell us about what you've been doing, especially the work that will be relevant to your campaign and to the job of city council member?
Yeah, so I have had a uh, diverse career. My first job in high school was working for a union grocery store called Rainbow, that is no longer with us. But we used to have the Rainbow in Uptown, and
Hmm.
rainbows across the Twin Cities.
Yep.
So I had a good time shoveling cars out of snow and pushing carts when it was 110 degrees outside and things like that. Um, and then I went to college and I got a degree in communication studies. So I've worked in digital marketing, other kinds of marketing since then. And so I've worked at different agencies. I've worked in politics in terms of political campaigns and the communications that go with that. Um, and I think for my uh, volunteer work with the neighborhoods and the community, I have been involved with our downtown Minneapolis neighborhood association, which covers both the west downtown and east downtown. And so uh, issues of our unhoused community in downtown, helping with pathways to housing, things like that. And then also we worked on a project where, as part of a new housing development, we wanted to have what's called a police substation so that officers could use the restroom, file the reports, things like that, without having to go back to the main precinct. And so with a lot of these things, it all takes a team, and we have a great volunteer base of people civically minded here in Minneapolis. Minnesota is one of the top states for volunteerism, and I think that makes us, that makes our community better. So I'm happy to be a small part of it there, and that's kind of the starting impetus for why I wanted to run for city council.
Yeah, and then I have a couple questions down about the inspiration behind running for office. So save that thought. What were some of your duties and details of your role as operations lead for the Minneapolis DFL?
Yeah, so as listeners might know, the Minneapolis CFL is all volunteer run. So I was had my day job, but then I had my volunteer role with the Minneapolis CFL. So back in March of 2020, I think it was March 11th or 14th or something like that of 2020, we had the onset of the global pandemic. And with the city caucuses that were coming up the next year, back in November and December of 2020, right after the presidential election, we did not have vaccines that were available to the public. It wasn't until, say, March, April, May that most people were getting vaccinated. And so, but we didn't even know that at the time. We were planning for the future. And so, with the help of the state Minnesota DFL, we had some emergency rules that allowed a modified version of the process that kept the structure of having delegates and caucuses and delegations that elected their own delegates and things like that. And we were the first virtual caucus, at least in Minnesota, if not the nation. And we did it all on grassroots donations. If you participated in Minneapolis in 2021, you might have noticed that every single email had a link to donate. Well, that was paying for the whole thing to move forward. And so we did it, and we endorsed city council members, and we endorsed park board commissioner candidates, and we had a city convention. It did not end in endorsement, but it did provide a very good platform for people to share their ideas. We had a mayor candidate forum that was viewed thousands of times by thousands of people. And so all of that was very good. And I was a small part of that in terms of the technical issues with the technology. As I have said, I've worked for Apple, so I have technology as part of my DNA in a sense. And so other people did the political work, and I did more of the technology work and helped make that happen. And I think there's undoubtedly where we saved lives, or at least at minimum saved people from getting COVID. And as we know, COVID is a long-term disease in terms of its effect on the brain, on the heart. So the more protection that we can give people and the more options that we can give people to participate, I think that's all a good thing.
Yeah, I think what I'm about to say is very obvious, but 2020 brought a lot of challenges, both in just life for a lot of people, but also logistics. Let's talk a little bit about the makeup of Ward 3. I have a map behind me as well. It's not entirely accurate. There's some spelling mistakes, but other than that, I think it's accurate of neighborhoods. So Ward 3 includes part of the lower northeast, part of southeast, or yeah, west of 35W southeast, and parts of downtown. I can see you have the map behind you, which I can tell is updated after redistricting, because I can tell by the shape of Ward 3. So what do you want people to know about the third ward, and what makes it special or unique?
Yeah, I think the lines have changed a little bit. So the thing that I say to people is, instead of talking about all the different lines of streets and things, generally you can think of Ward 3 as you go to the corner of Main Street Southeast and East Hennepin Avenue. You stand on that corner. You draw a circle 1.5 miles around you in terms of radius. And that's approximately what Ward 3 is. Yes, it goes in and out of that, but it's a pretty compact shape, relatively speaking. So as you said, it includes the lower part of Northeast. It includes half of Marcy Homes on the west side of the 35W interstate, and it includes downtown from basically Target Field to US Bank Stadium towards the river and North Loop. So that's a really diverse community. It's according to the latest information from the US Census Bureau with the American Community Survey, Ward 3 is approximately 70% renter. And so that might surprise a lot of people because we are used to the people who get engaged with the city processes and city meetings and things like that, and they tend to be a little bit more homeowner. But in fact, there's actually a majority renters in all parts of Ward 3, and the overall it's about 70%. And so I think going directly door to door and talking to neighbors directly, at their house and talking to them about issues like housing and zoning and rent and things like that. I think talking directly to people is a good thing, and that's why we have started door knocking these past couple weeks. And it's been great talking to people about the rent increases that are happening, but also how some areas with more competition are staying affordable.
Yeah, I've seen you post pictures of like I don't know if you're on like patios or whatever, but at the end of the door knocking and that view you get um, at the end of door knocking shifts.
Yeah, so yeah, there's several buildings that have really great views. Um, I always am partial to the buildings that have common space on the top floor. That's not true of all buildings, but if you have common space on the top floor, like one building that I used to live in, that can just be an incredible view. And it's a view that you can share with all your neighbors.
Let's shift into some couple policy questions. This is pretty broad, what does public safety look like to you? And what are some realistic things the council can do to make Minneapolis more safe, whatever more safe means to you?
Yeah, so I think starting from that founding principle of that everybody in Minneapolis, everybody who lives here, everybody who works here, everybody that visits here deserves to feel and be safe, no matter whether they're walking on the street or inside their own home or driving on the street or anything like that. In terms of all the ways that we are safe, everybody deserves to be safe. And everybody means everybody, because sometimes there seems to be an exception for people who are unhoused or unsheltered, that there's violence done to them, and that is that's not good. And I think that safety needs to, our circle of safety needs to include everybody. Um, and so when you're asking the question, what can the council do on that? I think that is a question that is still being answered right now. Because on the one hand, of course, before the Strong Mayor Amendment and after the Strong Mayor Amendment, both before and after, the mayor of Minneapolis, whoever holds that Police Department. And now with the new government structure and ordinances, we're talking about having a Office of Community Safety that would be the home of the police department. Regardless, the mayor has always been in operational control. But it is interesting recently here with the, and we're recording this on Thursday, December 1st, so we just had some ordinance pass out of committee, but the idea of having police conduct review or a citizen review commission, or I forget exactly what the acronym is being used right now. But the idea that the council can pass an ordinance that creates a body that will advise the police chief is interesting, because under state law, the police chief is the one who makes the final decision on hiring and firing officers. But it's interesting that this council, with the mayor's approval in some sense, is writing legislation that would give oversight to MPD. So I think that question still is being answered in terms of if it's something that that is approved of, then the council can do it. If it's something that is not approved of, then we have to ask the city attorney if we can do it, and it might be vetoed anyway. But regardless, I think that every answer to the question of safety in terms of community programs for safety, including police, needs to be accountable to the citizens of Minneapolis, to the residents of Minneapolis, and also needs to have actionable metrics. So often when we're talking about the new Office of Neighborhood Safety, which was the I forget what the previous name was, but that has like behavioral crisis response, people have said, well, those programs there's no research or metrics that those programs work, which isn't exactly true at all. But still, do we have actionable metrics on overtime shifts that cops are doing elsewhere in the community? And so I think no matter the particular policy solution for safety, whether it be police or behavioral crisis response or violence interrupters, I think having the city council use its role of oversight and auditing is exactly why we have a city council that is independent of the mayor, so that it can represent the city of, or the residents of Minneapolis in a different way than just the mayor.
Yeah, so public safety is one of my concerns, as well as this next topic, which it's a concern for me because I think it's a right, but at the same time, it's a concern to me because it's been talked about in Minneapolis a lot, and that is housing, which is very prevalent to Ward 3 because I think the plurality of development in the state is in Ward 3 of Minneapolis, or at least it was before redistricting too. What can be put in place, whether it be specific legislation or just general ideas, to ensure that as many people, if not everyone, is housed in Minneapolis?
Yeah, I think there's not one perfect answer to that, in terms of there's never one policy solution that covers everybody.
Yep.
But there are a spectrum of policy solutions that help together in coordination to address the crisis of housing in Minneapolis and more broadly in Minnesota overall. So first of all, we have the Minneapolis Comprehensive 2040 Comprehensive Plan. That plan legalized housing across the city. So if you're in a single family zoned area, it allowed now to have a triplex on the same lot. So a developer could, build a larger home with 3 apartments, and then also, of course, on transit lines to have different kinds of zoning for higher uses. And there's been controversy about that, but it has been effective in helping build more housing. So that's one thing. So that's kind of the market solution, as it were, to legalize more building of housing, so developers will naturally build more housing if it is profitable to them. Now, of course, we all know that it is not always profitable to build housing. And for example, it's not profitable to build quote unquote missing middle housing, because the cost of the land is expensive. And so to get a return on investment, developers want to build a larger building than what's called missing middle. So we have other tools to get more affordable housing. One tool is inclusionary zoning. That was passed in the last council, in the last 4 years in terms of the council before. And what that does is that any building over 50 units, and then in the future over a lesser threshold, but larger buildings have to include a portion of the housing that is affordable at less than median income levels. And that's, of course, the famous area median income, which is set on a regional basis, so the whole 7 or 5 county area. And so that there's actually a project that I did a video on recently that is in downtown. It's on the corner of, I think it's Portland and Washington Avenue. So there's 2 projects that are together, part of the same development that was together. So the affordable project is called Ladder 260. Why is it called Ladder 260? Because it's 260 Portland Avenue, and it's related to a new fire station that was built by the developer as part of the deal with the city to build the housing. So 27% of the apartments overall for the entire development are affordable. So the mid-rise area that is concrete and wood is the affordable section. And then there's a larger building that's taller than that, that is the market rate section. And so there's also other developments like the Expo on the southeast Minneapolis. So that is on University Avenue Southeast and about 2nd Avenue Southeast. And so the tower that everybody sees, that's the market rate area. But then there's also a mid-rise area around the building that is the affordable component. And so those are priced at a lower part for inclusionary zoning and other programs like that. So that's one way that we can help create more affordable housing today instead of waiting for it to become affordable in 100 years from now or something. And then finally, we have the housing for deeply affordable, and that is where Hennepin County is spending over $100 million a year buying properties and turning them into permanently deeply affordable housing so that people can have a pathway from being unhoused and unsheltered to being permanently housed and having an apartment that is affordable on like a Section 8 voucher or other housing voucher programs. And so one such project was the University Inn at 4th Street Southeast and I-35W. And so one of the differences between myself and the incumbent is that the incumbent sits on the City Planning Commission, but has very regularly tried to stop new housing developments, bringing up issues that are outside of the zoning code, issues like traffic where there's no traffic study needed, or in this case with the University Inn, he brought up the issue of crime, asking city staff or whoever was speaking if the residents of the housing that the county had were bringing crime to the neighborhood. There had never been a police report, and as we all know, building housing and having a deeply affordable housing for people actually reduces crime. It reduces recidivism. It reduces crime in a neighborhood to have affordable housing and have more people permanently housed so they can get the supportive services they need and just simply have a roof over their head. And so he delayed it for 2 weeks, but then the county came back and it passed unanimously. So that's an example of where now we're going to have 45 apartments right here in Marcy Homes that will be deeply affordable. So just looking back, I've talked for a lot about housing right there, but I'm talking about 3 different ways that you can address housing. one, market rate in terms of developers legally being able to build more housing where it's desired. Two, inclusionary zoning. So that's a government policy that requires affordable housing be built alongside market rate. And then three, government through Hennepin County or the city of Minneapolis directly building deeply affordable housing where it's needed most, and connecting people to supportive services like social workers and medication management and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, nothing is a simple, no topic is a simple
Yeah,
piece of legislation away.
if you want simplicity, then play checkers.
Yeah.
Even
Um,
that gets complicated.
um, so just let's see, I think this is pretty much the second to last question. What makes you the ideal candidate for Ward 3, and what inspired you to run for office?
I'll answer the inspired part. Um, I I think I've always wanted to help my community um, in some way. And for the past 10 years, that's been through supporting other people who wanted to run for office. So I worked on a city council campaign in 2013. I worked on a mayoral campaign in 2017. I worked on other campaigns for my first campaign ever was for US Senate in 2012 with Amy Klobuchar. And so these are people that I have invested my time with, have helped elect to office, and then by my small effort to help them get elected, then they are able to do extraordinary things in office. So all of us who tried to elect Joe Biden and also Raphael Warnock in Georgia, uh, those elections have been just opened the door to having. I mean, all the we've all been there's the all the legislation that's been done to invest in the American people, to invest in new jobs, to invest in families, to invest in green energy. All this stuff has, and the whole COVID vaccine program and testing and all that. All that is because we elected progressive leaders for at all levels of office, from city council to mayor to governor, etc. And so I've always seen myself until recently as somebody who is behind the scenes, helping shape policy, helping elect people, help with communications and messaging. Um, but with the election of the incumbent now, um, I was a little bit surprised because in 2021, he ran as a pro housing candidate. He even name checked Neighbors for More Neighbors and said that he was talking with us about housing and was learning things from us. And so it was surprising and disappointing that he took such a turn on the city planning commission. And so over the course of about 6 months, I first tried to recruit people to run for Ward 3. As I said, I always saw myself as somebody behind the scenes who wanted to help elect good people. And whether it was a newborn baby or a toddler or a graduate school or a combination of a toddler and graduate school, there's a lot of people who couldn't, who it didn't make sense at this time, and people encouraged me to run instead. And so that's what I did, and that's where we are now. And looking forward to the journey and campaign trail ahead.
All right, and then last thing here is What are you asking for? What do you need from residents and potential volunteers? And how can they find more about you? Social medias, website, events.
Yeah, so I'll say I think right now there's two main things that we're doing right now. One is meet and greets, and so we have all our events at czbi.org/events, and so that's our mobilized page that has our events. And so I'd love to meet you at a meet and greet if you live in Ward 3, or even if you don't live in Ward 3, come on by and we can have a great conversation. And then we're also doing door knocking. So we're knocking on doors all across Ward 3. During the winter time here, we are trying to do indoor apartment and other multifamily buildings so that they have heated hallways. And that makes it a little bit easier to have a conversation with somebody at your door if it's a warm hallway. So we've been doing that for a couple of weeks now and have had a really great response. And so if you want to get involved with that, you can go to czbi.org/doors and sign up for a couple shifts. We will email you and text you where the shift is that particular day, because sometimes it changes day to day in terms of what gets booked or if a location we had of course the snow that happened recently, and so we had to cancel for that. But then we rescheduled with a different building another day. So we tried to mix it around. Of course, we have about a good number of dozen buildings that we're going to be knocking over the next couple of months here. So would love for you to join either for a meet and greet or for a door knocking, and we'll give you training and literature. And I'd recommend bringing an over-the-shoulder bag so that you can put the literature in a bag so you don't have to carry it. But yeah, so those are ways to get involved. And thank you for hosting this podcast and giving me a chance to share a little bit about myself, about housing and public safety and all those good things.
Yeah. Well, that was part of my conclusion, but yeah, so thanks for coming on. And unless you have any questions for me or any additional comments, I'll let you go.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And yeah, today is Thursday, December 1st. So if this is by chance posted by Friday, we have our launch party on Friday, and we just sending out some more just reminder text messages to all our supporters to see if people can still make it. And so if it's supposed to be before Friday, otherwise, it was a great party. We had a great time. Everybody had a good time with the food at Gray's North Loop. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, and I will talk to you at your party and in the future.
All right, sounds good. Bye bye.
All right, so that was Conrad, candidate for Ward 3 in 2023 of Minneapolis, of course, because this is the Jason Sellers Politics podcast in Minneapolis is where I'm based and what we talk about for the most part. But we talk about all kinds of politics, Minneapolis politics, Minnesota politics, American politics, world politics. So if you're interested in those, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, add to your list or whatever on Spotify. And you can follow me on Instagram at MPLSJason. Follow me on Twitter at JasonSellersMN. Go to my website, jasonsellers.wixsite.com/ Jason Sellers. I'm still getting used to it. JasonSellersMPLS.wixsite.com/politics. My Twitch, I think, is up there, and it's the same, but I'm not really going to go. I don't think I'm going to do Twitch. So thank you. There was a little Wi-Fi, so I saw the Wi-Fi drop a little bit, so there might have been a couple of answers where he was kind of dropped. Sorry about that. You can check them out czbi.org. And yeah, do your research on Ward 3, do your research on Ward 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We got 3 candidates announced for Ward 6, including the incumbent. We got 2 candidates announced for Ward 12, not including the incumbent who's retiring, Andrew Johnson, and then re-election campaigns announced in Wards 1, 2, and 9. So, and 6, but I already said that one. So, again, thanks for watching. You can follow me on social media for more stuff. I think I'm going to start writing on my website too. I just started a writing page. I only wrote like an introduction post though, so I'll post about it again when I have some more. And thank you. And it's always election season. So, bye.